Hello, hello, and good morning or GM to everybody on this lovely Mergemas Day, Christmas adage. I'm your host, Keenan. Welcome to the September 15th, 2022 weekly DXdao community call. Of course, late last night for me, the merge was successfully activated on mainnet, which is massive news. We'll touch on a bit more shortly. And those of you that have joined us here for the pre-call, we have already chatted a little bit about. On the DXdao side of things, we're going to keep things a little more brief. There are a lot of people traveling, a lot of people missing today. So a little bit easier going on that side, but of course, wanting to focus a bit on the merge. Before we get started, and this is my regular call of attention here, those of you that don't know, you can find the upcoming community call in the events tab at the top of the server under the banner. You'll find it under the Live Now section where it says 2 events. You can opt into the events, get a ping before they start, etc. And yeah, that's all I have. Let's get right into things with the merge. Like I said, we've chatted a bit about this in the pre-call. Super exciting. I'm not sure. Of course, not trying to repeat what we had at the start of the call. For those of you that were are on the recording, but we're chatting a bit about how the merge was kind of a non-event in the sense that it went through flawlessly and there isn't really an immediate change. A lot of things working as expected. Which I suppose is a big technological feat that we've made it this far, and there's no hitches, there's no downtime, etc. So super exciting stuff. I want to quickly call attention to the ultrasound money dashboard. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar, but I think they kind of put together watch the burn for EIP 1445. But basically, this kind of tracks when the merge was leading up to it, the supply from the merge, supply change. We've actually been deflationary since the merge. We've removed 150-ish ETH from the supply, which is fantastic to see. And they have a lot of fun little metrics here I'd love to put on screen, but the Discord stages don't let us. Effectively kind of running through, what the burn looks like, supply growth, issuance, more importantly, running through kind of base fees, current fees versus what they're calling the ultrasound gas price, which is currently 15.1 Gwei. Basically meaning anything above 15.1 Gwei, the longer we spend above it, the more deflationary Ethereum is, which is super fantastic to see. I'm honestly just kind of peeked through this dashboard. It's pretty comprehensive. It has everything that you'd want to know about the merge, valuations, value secured, monetary premiums. Super great site. I'm not sure, Chris, if you have any thoughts mirroring from the pre-call. Otherwise, we can probably hop right into the next section.
No, I just think, it's a big event, and also I think opens up a lot more developments that Ethereum can now implement and upgrades over the coming years that really were part of the whole narrative in terms of the future roadmap. And, this is just like the first big piece of that.
Yeah, pandas is the takeaway here. All about pandas today. Cool. Well, let's hop right into our regular agenda, and just to reiterate, will be a slightly lighter call today, focusing on a couple of regular form threads and updates, keeping things light as we're missing a handful. Let's start with just a quick recap of Swapr. I think we have Adam and or Venki here in the chat. Just a quick insight as to what Swapr has been up to the last couple weeks would be fantastic.
Did that make it?
Yep, you're up here.
I wasn't sure. Venki has his hands up, I guess. Yeah, but anyway, for Swapr, we're currently finalizing the beta 16 release. So this has optimism support, just the eco router. We're also adding the analytics. So we want to get some insights on what's happening on Swapr in terms of the eco router and then the volumes. And obviously, this will be all public. So we're using Fathom. And the cool thing about Fathom is that everyone has access to the same dashboard. So we're going to probably have the link, and then people can check what's going on. For example, we had like about 30 metrics. So that would be like only for eQuator on all of the networks that we support. And then you can just see like the cumulative volume. So nothing in terms of like personal data is being collected. We just want the volume of the transaction, and that's the thing that currently Fathom allows you to track. And then for other things, I don't really recall the things. Like Banky is probably more knowledgeable, but I can probably just bring up my release notes and then check what's going on there. Notion. Okay. Yeah, so, and also like the other things probably that has been teased around is the expeditions, and this will go live on beta mode. And then I'm gonna probably leave the stage for Keenan because he's more knowledgeable in terms of like what's going to happen, but I can probably go on the technical jargon and what's going on in the background. So for like an API service that basically acts like a temporary state manager for the expeditions, but then eventually everything goes on chain, and then people can sync their collective fragments, and then they should be eligible for some sort of rewards. Keenan knows more about this, so I think that's everything for Swapr.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Adam. And yeah, just to reiterate, expeditions coming soon. Basically, as Adam had mentioned, kind of tasks and kind of building up a repertoire for your account that you'll be able to use to kind of claim rewards and personalization features directly in Swapr. Not going to give away too much here, but we'll be sharing more in the coming weeks. And just to answer Luigi's question, no POAP today. The last one we tried to issue actually is still caught in limbo with the issuer base, basically blacklisting every DXdao POAP. It's a bit frustrating. But yeah, crying Pepe. POAP censorship. We need to decentralize POAP after all. I think Aguso had a fantastic idea for that in Denver. Next up today, we have a little bit of a chat on DXD voting power surrounding guilds and governance 2.0, the current state of that. I believe we have invited Ross, but I think we're missing a handful, so we'll push that back, see if we can get Ross in here. Like I mentioned, expecting a bit of a lighter call regardless. Let's see here. Double mint. No, you can dump your proof of work POAMs, Connor. Well, let's hop instead into the DXD trade volume update from yourself, Chris, here on stage. And then from there, we'll hop right into tasks and priorities just to keep you in one place.
Cool. Yeah, so I posted this yesterday. It's a continuation of the trend we've seen the last couple months of just decreased volume overall. So you can see the average daily trading volume is like 32,000 over the last 3 months, but it's really dwindled a lot even over the last couple weeks here. I think there are, to preview the DXD token working group call, which is going to be in 1 hour and 22 minutes. I want to talk a little bit more about what we can do to get DXD liquidity up. Given we're kind of in this almost spiral where there's less volume and then the buyback sizes are smaller, and it's kind of, seeing how that can kind of change things a little bit there. Interestingly, though, on like the breakdown of the volume, the Swapr mainnet was actually the number one in terms of overall volume over the last, I think it's like 28 days. And that's surprising only because the DXD ETH swap fee was raised to 0.5% on August 17th. So over most of that time period, there was actually a higher fee there than on Arbitrum, still lower than Gnosis Chain, but interesting that it actually didn't affect volume in the negative. So LPs there have benefited there a lot, especially as LPs have benefited as like the price of DXD has gone down in terms of ETH, presuming it rises as it approaches NAV. Like LPs with the 0.5% like swap fee do get a good, it's kind of a good position if you can have the capital to do that. So that's kind of the trade volume. In terms of the buyback, you can see some additional updates there. We've gone pretty consistently. I think there's like 4 buybacks that are in there right now. They're around 6 ETH, which again, like because the like price of ETH is going down, then that'll affect like the size of the buybacks themselves. We'll talk a little bit more about some maybe ideas on DXD liquidity and the buyback, the next buyback. So there's about 80 ETH left in the GP relayer, and given that the size is small, around 6 ETH, that still will last a couple more weeks. But we've already authorized another 500K of purchases through the general treasuries, through the signal proposal that passed a couple weeks ago. So that one, I'm thinking we could be a little bit more, just think about how that's implemented and how that's executed. We've successfully done a trade on CowSwap on Gnosis chain from the DAO to purchase ETH for DXdao. It's actually not a great trade. I think it was at like 1750 ETH per DAI, but we're hoping that is something that can then be used to execute the buyback both on mainnet and on Gnosis chain, which would really reduce the overhead involved in terms of like owl liquidity, getting like someone has to execute it, so you have to give like a premium on it. But in terms of using CowSwap, it's difficult. The only difference or the obstacle now is that since there's not a relayer to check the oracle, you could potentially manipulate the price of DXD that the CowSwap order is executed on if there's not enough DXD liquidity on chain. So that's another reason why I think it's important to get DXD liquidity on chain so that you can actually use CowSwap to do it, because that would reduce the overhead for lots of things. So anyway, that's buyback. I don't know if there are any questions in the...
There was one question or comment rather from Spicy, inferring that the spiral ends once we admit ADTV is a meaningless limit. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but it'd be good to get some insight onto the current ADTV conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about the buyback, and this kind of gets into what we're talking about, the working group, like this is not something that is about like it's more of like a process or a policy, right? Where you're implementing buybacks, and maybe there could be other tools or levers that are implemented to affect the DXD market, like putting DXD liquidity in. There's also maybe some ideas we can talk about in the token working group. And so I think ADTV to me is a way of like implementing a policy of these buybacks, which spreads them out over a certain amount of time. I'm not sure if it's the best way to do that or if it like adjusts properly to the different market conditions, but I do think it's important that there is some structure and process to that. And so I think ADTV is like the tool we use now. And so I guess the question is like, what is like another tool that we could use going forward? Because I mean, if you look at the policy, how it's been implemented, the buyback policy over the last year and a half, it's been very advantageous for DXdao from a capital base, because it's acquiring lots of DXD at below NAV. Even now, after the last, like if you go back in June and July, DXdao was acquiring DXD at 0.38 or 0.39. I think it was even sometimes it was above 0.4. And that was partly because like the buybacks were speeding up, people were kind of buying into it. But if you look at where the DXD is now, and then like for the last week, and then also going forward, DXdao is acquiring DXD at 0.24. And that is like kind of, I think, a way of like, when you look at the long term of the ability for like DXdao to like increase its capital base, which is acquiring DXD at like low prices, I think it is effective to look at it through like a policy lens over like implementing it over a period of time. Let me read, sorry. Yeah, and like the historical, I agreed with kind of Connor saying, it's like, right, historical. And that's kind of like I think this is kind of how the whole conversation has like changed over the last couple months, because I think we've like reached a point where it's like, okay, that was like a good chunk, right? 14K, something like 30-35%. But as we like get closer, is that the same policy you want to be thinking about then? And I think, yeah, there are other considerations.
I guess as a question, it's clear that there's some strong opinions on ADTV and rather the removal of it. What would be the best avenue to kind of share and push that through governance from the DXD holder side right now? And if there isn't, then I suppose pointing to the guilds as a way to push that through.
Yeah, I mean, so there's buybacks happening now through the last proposal that passed. It's actually in like July. There's still 80 ETH in there. Those abide by the ADTV rules that have kind of been in the whole time, and I think those are that's kind of set, considering that will be going on for another 2 weeks. But I think the discussion should be focused on the next sets of buybacks, which have already been approved in the previous proposal. It was under different conditions than this one because this is coming from the general treasury. And so I think for that one, that's where we should focus on making some of these adjustments or thinking about that. And I think the best avenue for this is, as I was saying earlier, I think in the DXD token working group, I'm hoping we can talk about this there in terms of implementing this. And as I said, I think like the cow swap angle is another thing, because that's like a different way of executing these orders. So if we're going to execute it through that, then there needs to be some like method for like doing it. Because for instance, to use cow swap, someone has to they have to fill the order all in one. So like you couldn't, you'd have to make sure that someone would have like, I don't know, 25 ETH or 100 ETH or whatever you wanted to do it. So I think there's going to be some discussions on how we actually implement it through cow swap. And then I think that's how we can figure out how to like do it going forward. And the ADTV, because the ADTV is like, again, because like there's like 4 or 5 different levers that we have with the previous buyback structure, and a lot of that actually is because of the GP relayer that we use, the Gnosis protocol relayer we use. And so if we're switching to the cow swap for executing that, I also think there are different parameters to adjust for that. And so yeah, we'll talk about this in now an hour or 63 minutes.
Yeah, I need to sit down with the token model still. That's been in the back of my brain. And I wish I had a little more time to commit to it before the call today. So love the meme here from Luigi. Cool. Well, next up, maybe I can give a quick insight. And Adam actually did kind of cover this already, so probably not going to dive incredibly deep. But this forum post right here, Swapr feedback utilizing UseFathom. Basically, Swapr has always had challenges understanding its user base, basically as a result of our privacy first, no data collection, no tracking, etc. So, for example, we don't even know what trades go through the eco router since we connect directly to the contracts and we don't track any data. And so it's been challenging to understand what exactly is used most frequently in Swapr, what should be capitalized upon. So this is an initiative, I believe, kind of kickstarted by Venki surrounding, a privacy kind of focused way of collecting analytics. Basically, UseFathom, they claim to be privacy-focused, touting anonymous page user tracking and no cookie requirements, which is, of course, directly in line with what we are interested in here at DXdao and Swapr. This post kind of runs through the reasoning, namely why Swapr needs it. We're developing new features, integrating additional DEXs, and enabling new networks, but we have no idea how the success of those implementations are and where they should be prioritized. What is contributing to the success of Swapr. And the only analytics that we have at our disposal right now is basically on-chain data. So it's very difficult for the squad to plan out the product, determine which is a successful venture or not. So the how we'll use is also the only other important part, I believe. We kind of indicate here in the post. Swapr will use this data only for product feedback and anonymized page views, not collecting user information such as IP addresses, countries, keys, balances, etc. So I just caught the message in the chat. Swapr will use the data to understand better how Swapr is used, and some of it we use to set goals, objectives for the growth of Swapr, shared quarterly with DXdao. So obviously, I think this is super important. Next step is to just kind of see if there's any pushback, any feedback here in the forum. Otherwise, I believe the Swapr team will want to move forward with this. So give it a read if you're interested in Swapr and the kind of future of the way data is collected and whether UseFathom is the right solution. Kicking the ball. What's a baseball term for passing the ball back over to you, Chris? If you want to give a quick chat on tasks and priorities.
You're calling the reliever. You need a reliever to come in and pitch for you. Yeah, just a brief on this, which I'll share here. This is a spreadsheet that lists, I think it's about like 65 different tasks and priorities that DXdao is doing. So these are things that contributors are currently working on, currently expending resources on, and then some additional priorities that DXdao values, but maybe there aren't the resources to implement now, or there isn't the consensus to do that. And so this is, I guess, kind of to give us a holistic view of all of the different things going on in DXdao and figure out, okay, does this make sense to keep doing this one? Is there a way that we can find consensus on this so that we can move forward and start implementing that? So yeah, this sheet there is, yeah, and there's colors on there that are color coded for those that enjoy colors to do that. And so hopefully this is kind of like the beginning of looking, I guess, Keenan, you get to the restructuring proposal in a bit, but just kind of looking at building better accountability regimes into DXdao. And I think that is about understanding what kind of things are being worked on and what those resources are there. So there's like a cost element to this. You want to understand like how much different squads cost, but you also want to be able to give insight into what the actual output of those is. And so I think this would be things that like recurring things like calls, and also even like the buyback execution, for instance, is like a recurring thing. We're constantly building products. There's all of these different things. But there's also things that we're doing that are one-off and putting some resources into those. So yeah, hopefully it will be something that we can build on and have some more discussions over the next coming weeks and in Colombia.
And build on, I think, is important because you obviously, when you made this, put it out and said, it's definitely missing some things, and it's still a lot. And so like this is definitely the kind of base framework, and it's still a crazy amount of things that we're kind of doing and focusing on. So hopefully building out this as well, as you mentioned, kind of collecting and pointing to everything that we're doing and have going on. Cool. So I guess next wanted to quickly highlight the alternative restructuring proposal. I have bias. I'm obviously leading this call and the proposer of this proposal, so I will not stay on this topic for longer than a quick call of attention. But there is a thread in the forum, as well as a Signal proposal now live and boosted on Gnosis chain that runs through a restructuring proposal that kind of highlights DXdao acknowledging its problems that it has and a path forward to solving them, and also the integration of DXD and rep holders together to make those solutions. So I'll drop the link here in the chat. I won't share opinions, of course, as I have bias. But the important thing is the first action of this Signal proposal is DXdao acknowledging its issues on chain, which of course is gospel to us and very important. And the second most important thing is this kind of phase-based structure that points to deadlines that are of course arbitrary. We want to adhere to them the best we can, but things happen in governance. Pointing to those to have kind of deadlines for those actions. So low-hanging fruit, which is the take immediate action kind of step. These are the things that shouldn't have any conflicts in governance and should be able to pass right away without much discussion. Anything that's contentious in that period, presumably we move back to phase 2. And that's planning to get through governance, be executed on chain, mostly as a signal by September 30th. It may be a bit tight because the Signal proposal for the restructure was pushed back a day or two, but we'll do our best to make that work. Phase 2, accountability, access, and autonomy. This is basically, anatomy, focusing on kind of structure, our core meat of the issues and how we can solve them. How do we solve cultural problems? How do we incentivize budding talent? Allow new ideas to flourish? How do we keep leaders accountable? And how do we make DXdao profitable? Are kind of the main questions that I think should be solved here. Tentatively, that's aiming for end of October after the Bogota kind of retreat and meetings, as well as some time for phase 1 to kind of simmer. And then kind of finishing up with phase 3, which is acknowledging that we have, identified and pointed to the problems and how to solve them, and effectively executing upon them. So if that's DXdao is not profitable or this product isn't going to be profitable, how can we reallocate those resources? How can we, take a step back and capitalize on what is going to be profitable and or beneficial to DXdao's product suite versus, continuing to throw what's the saying? Throw things at the wall till it sticks, for the PG version. So that's that proposal. Maybe talked a bit more about it than I should have. I see censored bad words here in the chat. But of course, appreciate the support. Anyone that has any feedback, both positive or negative, please share in the forum. That is good to have for governance and voting. And would like to see a high voter turnout on this proposal, personally. Again, acknowledging bias, don't want to point to anything specifically. If you don't like the proposal, please vote negative for it. Against, but yeah, that is that. Super excited to see this go through, and also very excited to see DXD and Rep have more of an equitable kind of outlook on the future of the DAO.
Just for those listening at home, the expletive in the chat was not about the proposal.
Yeah, the chat's going haywire here. Fighting, swearing. I'm just kidding. So next topic here. Infinite grants, Hacker House, and more. I think we have Augusto in the chat. Augusto, if you want to pop up here and just for the recording, chat a bit about specifically the grants and Hacker House that have kind of come up in the last weeks, and maybe a bit about the recent uptick in applications for Infinite.
Hola. Yes. We started the grants for 20 hackers. Consists on a free stay on one of the 2 hacker houses that we book. Each of the hacker house can host 10 hackers. So this will be a shared place for the hackers to stay from the 6th to the 17th of October in Bogota. In addition, they will receive $200 in DAI when they attend the hackathon in person. So this is a grant. We are currently selecting the people that will be selecting the hackers that we have the grant. We have a bit more of 40 hackers already applied, so looking good. We are like 3 weeks, 3 weeks behind the event, and starting organizing the judges, the men. The important thing is that the grants are taking. I think the grants is a great initiative. I don't know of another hackathon up doing that. And important thing is we are giving special consideration to Latin American applicants for the grant. And yeah, that is everything.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Augusto. And for those of you on the recording, infinite-hackathons.eth.limo will be the place to get some more info. I've also shared it in the chat here. This website's still kind of going through some reiterations here, so a couple broken elements, but the most important part is it has the information, and we'll be getting this info on the grants and the Hacker House as well coming here in the next coming days. So thanks again, Augusto. Super excited for Infinite. Check out the link in the chat here. Cool. Next up for me, another very quick call of attention. DXdocs V1.1.1 has been released. A bit of a minor release, as you can tell by the various ones. 1.1.1, of course, fun to say. But importantly, it kind of goes through and restructures a couple things. It restructures the contributor hub section, changes some things that Contributor X has been looking towards, and most exciting to certain someone here on the call, removing all instances of .link, including legacy site information. So everything will point to Limo now, which is exciting. Again, not a massive release. You can play through it here in the GitHub, fun little image as well. But you can look to that releasing in the coming days. So really liking this song right now. Cool. I think that actually gets through most of the topics today. I think, unfortunately, the DXgov team was caught up, like I mentioned, a little bit of a travel and scheduling conflicts, missing a handful of contributors today. So we'll not be chatting today on Guilds in 2.0, but there is a very important forum thread that would be referenced here, which I will link to in the chat. If anyone wants to chat about it, of course, we can have a quick chat about it, but I am not, unfortunately, the one to run over it. Just to give a quick highlight, Guilds is effectively granting DXD governance power, minting this guild that would vote for proposals, a certain amount of rep. Ross just, I think this morning, said that his personal view on the amount of rep being minted to the guild is something in the range of 20 to 35%. Which is definitely what I was also thinking. I've been chatting with a couple DXD holders about this, namely Connor. So super happy to see that there seems to be an immediate kind of thought of pushing towards that area. That being said, their goal right now is to get it deployed and start with a 4% rep and minting more through DXdao governance, it appears. So again, I'm probably not the best one to run over this topic personally. But take a look at the forum thread I put in the chat here, namely the recent comment from Ross and Augusto. I think is super important. Getting it deployed immediately and then pointing to DXdao governance to load up on additional rep for the guild. I think super important. Connor here in the chat, completely get the ramping up in generally green normal conditions would likely mean us having to push back a lot of the bigger discussions in the upcoming restructuring, fors and against. Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be good to come out swinging with a high percentage personally. If it's a kind of stress add to the team that wants to just get it deployed, I think it makes sense to just go out with that initial percentage. But a lot of questions. I think that phase one probably won't need much of a vote anyhow. So if we're talking pure voting power, it's not going to have much of an effect in my eyes, because I see phase one changes as being very, very light in kind of conflict and, who's pushing on what. And then phase two, of course, taking a longer period that will presumably have that guilds and presumably also a higher percentage of rep for the guild at that time. So lots of area, I think, for DXD to kind of fit into that discussion without worry in my eyes. From Spicy Soup here, worth highlighting that since DXD holders don't have rep at the moment, we have to rely on contributors and rep holders having to push this through rather than taking hands-off approach and leaving it to governance. We need champions. See Augusto popping up here as well, I think.
Yeah, I just heard the question. Couldn't understand it. Can you repeat it? I'm looking for the chat here.
Which question specifically?
Yeah, the one from Spicy Soup.
Yeah, he says that it's worth highlighting that DXD holders don't have a rep, so they have to rely on contributors and rep holders to push through rather than taking a hands-off approach and leaving it to governance. So basically implying that rep holders that need to kind of push these things through initially and kind of support the vision of DXD holders as they don't have governance power.
Yeah, I agree. This is initially what we are doing. This is what we are doing. First of all, we need to deploy the DXD guild. I say Ross that raise his hand. This is something that I talked with Ross yesterday. We need to take first action. The DXgov squad has the responsibility to deploy the tools and make sure that we are going to have everything we need technically for us to execute our governance decisions, right? So This is something that we talk, that it is planned, that is going to happen. So we are taking action on that. I don't know, Ross, do you want to add something else?
I don't think so necessarily. Yeah, I don't know if there's any like direct questions on the DXT guilds. I think the thread's been pretty a pretty good discussion so far. Yeah, I think having the tools in place is like the first step, and if there's additional need or like want for minting some more rep, we can kind of approach that as we go. And yeah, just seeing Connor highlight something that I was mentioning, we should probably burn this rep. It could be interesting to leave some of the rep as a like signal for the DXD guilds. We'll need to see how that how that evolves with governance 2.0, but it doesn't make sense for the DXD guild to have any large amount of rep beyond governance 2.0, and this is just short term, allowing DXD holders to have a voice.
I think the very important role of DXD is to have a place where only DXD holders, right, can make decisions. Governance 2.0 is going to create this hybrid DXdao where we are going to have rep and DXD holders making decisions. But having the DXD guild, again, is a great tool. It's a great place where we will want to make decisions or need, again, on-chain approval of DXD holders. So in the future, leaving like, I don't know, let's say 0.1% of reputation to the DXD guild, just to make sure that we can have that single approval on proposal from DXD holders is very valuable. For now, like I just said on the DAO talk, on the DAO talk topic, the DXD guild with rep voting on DXdao governance, that's a weak technical implementation. Is something that it will work, but this is not what we desire, right? The end result and what we really want is governance 2.0 with a more natural integration of DXD holders and reputation holders. For now, we need a DXD guild, even more importantly, to make decisions on the DXD token working group. So we are going to came to a decision there that it is a requirement to have on-chain approval by DXD holders. So this is going to put some pressure on the DXgo squad to have something ready before the DXD token working group ends. And I think that is going to be the first very important decision, because the DXD token is a crucial part, right? It's a very important part of the DXdao. So we are recognizing the importance of the DXdao holders in the process.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Augusto, and thank you for coming, Ross. I was going to ping you, but I figured you were out and about. Also, another great lo-fi tune here. Cool. Well, like I mentioned, this gets through the main agenda for today. If there's any questions or topics that we have not covered, feel free to step up here. I think Adam, just as we're about to roll into the outro here, I think there's a little bit of Nimi Alpha that you wanted to share. If you're still up for that, feel free to do so.
Sure. So for Nimi, we started like onboarding a new developer to help us with some of the front-end work. Also like decided to add like a few edits to our widgets. So in the next release, you're going to be able to select an NFT that you own from any collection that you own as a display image. And then we might like have some sort of a hexagon shape to indicate that this is like an NFT. And obviously we're going to verify that you own it on the back end, but also we're also adding like a POAP editor. So you should be able to select and showcase your favorite POAPs. Right now, when you add the POAP, we select the most 8 recent ones. With this change, you will be able to showcase your favorite ones. So those are the two things just for now.
Super, super cool. Thank you, Adam. Just showed a little one of those Twitter memes in the chat here. I'm not sure if you had anything visually to back it up that you wanted to tease. Feel free to do so in the chat. Otherwise, thanks again for the alpha here. Cool. We'll just see some room for typing here. Letting Cantillon type up. If anyone has any thoughts, questions, comments, feel free to leave them here. Otherwise, we'll just wrap up the call. Here we go. Some Nemi Alpha here in the chat. Those of you on the recording, you'll have to swing by the mothership in Discord to find. Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Of course, enjoy your merge. Love to see the merge going through successfully. It looks like the dumping has stopped for the day, hopefully, but you never know. Again, last call of attention, of course, Infinite Hackathons. It's infinite-hackathons.eth.limo. If you haven't already, to apply for Infinite in Bogota. We'll be having some grants, Hacker House, a lot of interesting things to sign up for. And just seeing some fun in the chat here. Slowly typing sentences that have no substance to make you wait until the end of the call. Cantillon just wants the call to run, you know. Cool. Well, thanks again, everyone. Appreciate each and every one of you. We will see you next week, same time, same place, 1500 UTC. I believe it's Thursday, the 22nd. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Thanks, Keenan.